Hi, everybody. Many of you here will recognize me, but if not, my name is Brooke. I'm the operations manager for BISG, so my primary role is supporting our committees and our working groups and all of the incredible efforts and initiatives that we have. In this cheekily titled session, Around the Horn, it wouldn't be a BISG function without a good pun. We're going to talk and share about some of the efforts and the accomplishments of our working groups. Without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and invite BISG's Executive Director to the podium to talk about our exciting new tool, Find a Rightsholder.
So over the past few years, our Rights Committee has been compiling imprints in a shared Google document that also pointed to the publisher's preferred contacts for rights and permissions. This is work that was launched by Jeffrey Corrick, who's retiring this year from Penguin Random House. So Jeffrey had helped the Association of American Publishers release similar directories without an interface in the early 2000s and 2010s. But the working group at AAP was no longer active, so he brought the idea to BISG. By mid last year, we'd compiled information from more than 3,500 imprints. That's not the entire universe, but we kind of saw it as critical mass for the project. The group working on the database had already realized that there was a need to build some sort of interface tool that would allow even a casual user to search the directory, find a rights holder, and contact them directly. In November, we hired a company to help us build that tool. It was introduced in beta form at the Doing Rights Right event that Chris Kleeman chaired in January, and we're formally launching it with you today. What you see on the screen is a search page for Find a Rights Holder. Any user can enter a minimum of 3 letters excuse me, to obtain results for any listing that includes those letters. To get a sense of how the search works, let's try entering RAN, the start of Random House, which is a reasonably large publisher in these parts. So what you see is a search that is actually too broad. You're getting everything from Random House, but you're also seeing On-Brand Books, Hildebrand Book Publishing, a lot more options. Of course, somebody who's actually looking for a specific rights holder probably knows the more specific imprint name. So I thought maybe we should see what happens when we look for my favorite imprint, Flirt, a Penguin Random House imprint. So you get an exact listing. That's more satisfying. You see the Flirt is part of Random House Publishing Group and its parent, Penguin Random House. You have a choice of asking about rights or permissions. Larger publishers may have different contacts for each. Smaller publishers sometimes overlap the roles. If you click on the dark blue part of the list, it generates a message from your email client, right? So you can automatically email somebody either subrights or permissions. You can also copy the same contact information and add it yourself to an email message, a contact list, or a document. So if this is your imprint and you see something's out of date, you can click on the pencil icon to the right. That brings up a form where you can suggest changes, and those changes are then routed to BISG. A staff member or a member of the Rights Committee will review it, and then it will be published when confirmed. What you see here is actually a security piece that we have for to prevent scraping. Effectively, you have to be able to enter a code and then have it come back to you. You can also suggest additions. This is an area where we're hoping that the industry will work with us to augment the size of the database. We're at 3,500. The universe might be 12,000. But we kind of found it within the context of a working group that we'd taken it as far as we could. An example where we might be able to augment is that fast-growing publisher Sourcebooks. And what you see here is actually one Sourcebooks-related imprint we have in the database, and it's the legacy of an acquisition from Workman in 2022. Workman had contributed its imprints to us, and when Sourcebooks bought it, we updated the listing, but we don't know the permissions content. contact, and so we can add that data. But obviously, there are many more imprints at source books, and there's two opportunities. One is we could go to every publisher who's in that category. That takes a lot of work for volunteers in particular. Or we can have each of those publishers submit a form and say, look, please add these imprints, which we would quickly review and add. As with the edit button, any suggestions coming into us are reviewed by the staff and perhaps the Rights Committee. And as I said a moment ago, if you're doing this at home, you'll also be prompted to give us an email address the first time you come in, and we'll send you a code that will make sure you're not a bot scraping the data. It's a minor speed bump. We also put limits on how many things you can look up in a single session before it throttles you a little bit. There's more to the tool, which you can access today on the BISG website. If you go to bisg.org, my favorite website, navigate to the Rights Committee page, which is the second drop-down. You scroll down just a bit on that page, and you'll see Find a Rightsholder, which is the name of the tool. You can also just put findaRightsholder.bisg.org in your browser, and you should be able to get that. And we welcome feedback. We think it's a really cool thing that's going to help the industry. It's going to reduce time. It's probably going to increase uptake of rights and permissions and grow revenue for the book business.
Thank you, Brian. This is a tool that we've been working on for quite a while, and I'm very excited to see it come to fruition. I also want to thank Brad Kane in the audience for his support on that, so round of applause. Next up, it's my pleasure to introduce BISG's Metadata Committee Chair, Claire Holloway of OCLC, who will speak on the work of our Accessibility Metadata Working Group.
All right, well, I have 4 minutes to speak, and I could speak on this for days, so I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. So the Accessibility Metadata Working Group, it's a joint task force, for lack of a better term, between the Metadata Committee and the Workflow Committee. So Workflow, looking at how is that EPUB created, and Metadata, looking at the metadata about the EPUB. So what's the burning platform? Why do we care? What's the fire? Well, if you don't know already, the EAA, the European Accessibility Act, goes into effect on June 28th, 2025. I have a countdown going. It is 9 weeks away. That is nine weeks away. 9 weeks away. Just to give you a quick overview, because I've got you here. The EAA basically, any content sold digitally within the EU this law applies to. It must have accessibility features up to the WCAG 2.1 WCAG standards. And at OCLC, we've been looking at this as three buckets of accessibility. There's the platform, so a website where you're directing people to perhaps buy a book or get information about a book. There's the content, that's the ebook file itself, typically an EPUB, but PDFs still exist. And then there's the third bucket, which is the metadata about the content, the metadata about the accessibility features found in the content. This working group is focusing on that third bucket, okay? And it's easy, it took us a few sessions to get to that understanding. We're not focusing on how that EPUB is created. We're focusing about how the accessibility features are being communicated about, okay? So basically, we had to decide, well, what are we doing here? Well, we're not all experts in the room. We're not all Rachel Comerford, right? Expert in the room who attends committee or working group. And so we're like, we're going to amplify the messages of the experts in the room. So we are very lucky to have a great relationship with Editor and Chris Sainer in particular, who, Editor, Onyx, they have statements about this. What should you do in your Onyx to express this? We amplify that message. We give them a platform for speaking. We point to their research and on their site. LIA, Fondazione LIA in Italy, they're doing great work, we're pointing to them. Canada has so much great work going on that we're pointing to them. And this is a North American committee, so we do have, we have like Laura Brady on the committee to point to that work being done in Canada. So we're amplifying the existing messages of what's going on. We're also using that amplification to educate, holding a series of webinars. There was one at the end of March that you can find on the BISG resources list, or I think you can go straight to YouTube, right? You can go straight to YouTube and find it, but it's excellent to get you up to speed. So we're basically using this working group time to get the right people in the room, to have the discussion so we can all benefit from it together, which is the value of BISG. So I want just to give 2 examples of things that we've done in our working group. First of all I think it was the very first time we met. We had people who didn't typically meet together, and they said, oh, we've got meetings with, I'm just gonna say, Amazon, what is Amazon doing about all this? And we're like, well, you can't, if Amazon's not taking Onyx 3 for their ebook, for Kindle, then they can't get the accessibility metadata that's only available in Onyx 3. Codeless 196, which you should know this. There'll be a quiz afterwards. Codeless 196 in Onyx is all about accessibility, and you can only use it in Onyx 3. If you don't take Onyx 3, you can't benefit from Codeless 196. And when was it? Last month, March, Amazon says, hey, we're taking Onyx 3 for ebooks now. And oh, by the way, I don't think they said this is the reason why, but we can benefit from the accessibility metadata put into the supply chain. Second, libraries. So I'm from OCLC. I think this is the first time the word library has been used today, but BISG represents the entirety of the supply chain, including libraries. And so in the library world, if you can't catalog an ebook, book in hand, you don't have an EPUB file to crack it. You can't crack open and read that code within the EPUB file because usually you don't have that ebook file. You're getting it through a partner that is making that ebook file available to your patron, your user. So without that, you are dependent on the metadata streams from the publisher themselves. So the publisher has to put it in their Onyx to then get into your MARC record librarian. So we've been doing a lot of work on that at OCLC and across the library spectrum to make sure that that data gets in. And that has become a particular spot in this meeting that we have. I give a library update to make sure that the entirety of the supply chain is represented. So I will add that, yes, the EAA is the burning platform, but the ADA, so the Americans with Disabilities Act update to Title II, that is due to happen in April of next year. So that is on the docket to happen, and it will affect the funding that will be used to purchase content. It must be accessible. You need to be able to communicate with your customers that your content is accessible. Therefore, there's some metadata requirements in there too. So that's April. So even if you're not worried about Europe, you should be thinking about April in the US. So that is the update. And also I'll add, so we're thinking, are we gonna sunset this in June? Which we originally thought we'd sunset the working group in June when the EAA rolled out, but of course ADA is still around. Maybe there's a need for this, or maybe we need to absorb this into our different committees. So as I said, I could talk about this for days. I'm really trying to cut it short here. Find me if you want to talk anything about accessibility metadata. Thank you.
I also want to add that BISG is hosting a webinar specifically on preparing for the ADA Title II update next month. If you go to bisg.org/events, you'll be able to see it listed there. It's free to attend. Rachel will be one of our speakers there, and I highly encourage you to come. It will be very informative. Without further ado, I'd like to call up our next speaker, who is another BISG committee chair, Chris Kleeman of Kleeman & Co., who's going to speak on our Rights Royalty Statement Standards Working Group. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This slide tells you almost everything you need to know, so focus on that. Another long-time Rights Committee project. We're, like all the committees at BISG, we're listening to what is the problem, where's your pain, we're running interventions, and hopefully coming up with solutions. This royalty statement standard project did first show up in public, really, in May 2024, in this iteration. And I think it was George Logan who called it a straw baby. It wasn't even grown up enough to be a straw man. Very cute, though, and we've continued to work on it. We have a good working group. We're happy to have more people with eyeballs on this. We're going through the proposed fields. Our final product will have the field label, the synonyms, big issue in publishing, vocabulary, right, and of course taxonomy anywhere, but synonyms, definitions, and notes as needed. The use case we chose was a translation rights royalty statement. In many licensing organizations, that is a high volume, almost always incomplete piece of information that arrives on our desks, and we spend a lot of time chasing that, when really all we want to do is talk about books to new customers and existing customers. So we'd like this royalty problem to be solved more easily. That's where we're headed with a standard. And what we found in talking about this particular use case of translation rights royalty statements is that we are in fact creating standards that will apply to all kinds of royalty statements. We'll have a meeting on the Friday of the Frankfurt Book Fair to begin further proselytizing this with the translation publishers to, I hope, have more usage, continue to spread usage. We will look as we go along. Some of you in the room have been waiting for this. We will look at a possibility of badging publishers who follow the BISG standards, badging system vendors who have royalty statements ready to go for their customers that would follow these standards, publishing lists of people, basically handing out halos for those of the publishers who manage to do the right thing. You see there the benefits. The point is, get some of this scut work, is that a rude word, taken care of so that we can increase revenue, spend more time on new deals and new markets, and generate generally all good feelings all around. So join us.
We will be having a meeting at the next Frankfurt Book Fair where we will talk more about this and present the work of the working group. So if you will be in Frankfurt, give us a shout and we'll give you all the invitation details. Next up, I'd like to welcome Lauren Stewart of BookNet Canada, who will be speaking about the Sustainability Working Group and our partnership with the Green Book Alliance. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lauren. I'm here for the working group. Also here representing our partnership with the BISG on the Green Book Alliance, which was co-founded by the BISG, by Book Industry Communication in the UK, and BookNet Canada. So yes, I am Canadian. I come here in peace today, at the very least. I feel like I have to get it out there, almost like confession, although not Catholic, but got to get it out there. So the working group from the BISG is a function of the Supply Chain Committee, and there is some overlap in terms of topics as well as membership between the two groups. However, the Sustainability Working Group has a number of objectives that are discreetly applied and available on the BISG website, so I won't list those here, as well as some on the slide, of course. And the reason I'm here is because of the close alignment between the working group as well as the Green Book Alliance and how both groups are currently focused on data collection for carbon reporting. The Sustainability Working Group members and invited participants who are joining for the next few months or hopefully long term will be working through a curriculum that was developed through the GBA to essentially develop data collection for carbon reporting both at the organizational level as well as for individual books, both print and digital formats. This curriculum was developed with the GBA, starting amongst this working group within the next few months, and the next meeting will be in June for this committee. In addition to calculating carbon, the GBA is currently investigating options to provide web-based and hopefully free, but we'll talk about that in a second, carbon calculators for physical and digital formats. We have started a procurement process for that, working with carbon calculators that were created for the Canadian market, and ideally with the goal of expanding access and use by participants in GBA's focus markets of the UK, the US, and Canada, and then building off of those to reduce any friction and open up access. In terms of money, what I said, it would be free. Wouldn't that be wonderful? We are looking for sponsors. I'm very bad at sponsor development, but I figure there's a stage. I've watched Brian be very good at this for years, so I figure this is an opportunity. We're looking for organizations and firms who are interested in advancing access to carbon calculation for publishers in a way that opens up access, removing barriers, particularly the barrier of cost. Booknet has been a software developer for a while, so we are looking for a partner that would be interested in working with the engine that we've already built here and using the contributions that the Canadian publishing industry has already developed and opening it up to more. We can talk in both Canadian and US dollars. Canadian dollars are a lot less currently. Again, who knows what's going to happen there. But just to bring it all back, if you want to talk about that, I'm happy to chat at lunch. And then finally, to just kind of pull this all together, what the working group as well as the GBA is working on is coalescing around a recommended best practice. We're hoping to have that out by the end of 2025, and with the stewardship of Brian and Brooke, I absolutely think that's within bounds. If you're following BISG on all of the channels, I'm sure you will be updated. I'm sure Brooke will post to that as well, and we'll also be meeting in Frankfurt to talk about many of these things and more. Thank you for having me today, and over to you.
I'd also like to add that the Sustainability Working Group is part of our effort to mentor and offer those kinds of learning opportunities for the next generation of publishing professionals. We have a partnership with Portland State University's graduate program and their in-house press, Ooligan Press, to support their work to do a new edition of their book, Rethinking Paper and Ink, which is a book on how to produce books sustainably, and that book was produced sustainably. There'll be a copy on your seat at lunch. I encourage you to take a look through it and really enjoy the information that's in there, and get in touch if you're interested in supporting this project to create a new updated version on how we can all make books better. Next up, I'd like to welcome Brian O'Leary back to the podium to talk about the Barcode Price Extension Working Group.
So several years ago, we started an effort to try and figure out whether or not we needed the barcode price extension. The short answer is yes, we do. But we do have a cross-section of publishers in the industry who are seeking greater price flexibility. And the price extension essentially fixes the price on the book and makes it difficult to discount without stickering. We look for options that would provide that price flexibility while still respecting what distributors and some retailers' operational needs are. And in the end, we weren't able to find a solution that met everybody's needs. So what we did was draft a recommendation that said, if you're distributing through these channels, you need to continue to provide the price extension, or there might be costs involved depending on the trading relationship that you have. It's absolutely the case that a cross-section of distributors and retailers continue to need the price extension. We put out a draft recommendation about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. All the feedback we've gotten is that this makes sense. So we expect to go to a final recommendation next month.
Thank you, Brian. So we've heard about 5 different BISG initiatives that all have a concrete impact on our industry. It's pretty great, huh? The good news is that's only the half of it. We have 10 working groups. I'd like to take a moment and talk a little bit about some of the other projects that our initiatives are working on. The AI working group has endeavored to create a survey of use of AI and best practices within the industry, so keep an eye out for that. Our audiobook best practices working group is adapting a set of best practices created by BIC originally in the UK specifically for the North American market. So how are we creating audiobooks in the US and in Canada? We also have an ISNI working group that's identifying a workflow for US implementation so that we can grow that use of the identifier. And our metadata best practices group, which is updating one of our flagship products and is expected to wrap up that work in September. So we're hoping to publish that early next year, which we're very excited about. A BISG staff of 3, myself, Brian O'Leary, and Liz in the back, coordinates all of our committees and working groups. So that's 5 committees and 10 working groups for a combined total of over 110 meetings and 35 webinars and programs in 2025 alone. This wouldn't be possible without the contributions of our many committee members, so thank you for volunteering. I'd also just like to acknowledge that all of our committee chairs are in attendance today, so may I please hear a round of applause for those 5 individuals that do an enormous contribution for the industry. And if any of this sounds cool to you and you want to get involved and you want to be a part of this, we're a group that aims to lift all boats, and we would love to have your participation. So please find us at the networking reception afterwards, come talk to us at lunch, and we'll work to make that